Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another very interesting Jurassic World release. As you can see, this is from Jurassic World Dominion, and we've got ourselves the Iron Studios Pyroraptor. Now this is another 1/10 art scale release, and it's something that I thought looked absolutely fantastic. Even from the images that I had seen of the final product, I thought it looked really good from what I've seen. I guess we'll have to be the final judge today. I'm not often impressed when it comes to the paintwork of Iron Studios releases, but I thought that the Pyroraptor from Dominion was just super cool. I love the scene that, it's included in, and the overall design and everything. And of course, being the first feathered raptor to really appear in the Jurassic franchise is also super cool. So another reason why I really wanted to own the statue. I recently saw that the numbers were dwindling for this on Big Bad Toy Store, so I went ahead and placed an order for it before it becomes really quite hard to find, because I missed out on the Dimetrodon, which I actually really wanted from Iron Studios, and unfortunately never got an order in time, and I didn't want the same thing to happen with the Pyroraptors. So maybe one day I'll get the Dimetrodon, but for now I at least have this one. But as you can see, the packaging looks pretty cool. You've got a nice shot of the statue over on the side, again Iron Studios. On the other side, Pyroraptor, and then on the back, kind of a nice little image here of the statue itself. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and see if it's decent or, like it normally is, a letdown from Iron Studios. So there is the Pyroraptor now out of the packaging and standing here on the base, and honestly, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is my new favorite piece from Iron Studios. They really did a very good job on this, and I don't say that very often, especially when it comes to their work. I have, a few of their models now in my collection, probably 4, 5, 6, I'm not really sure. And I've never really been super impressed with any of them. I've been fairly impressed. I think the most I was impressed was with the original Velociraptor that I had. But when it comes to most of them, like the Dilophosaurus and their Tyrannosaurs and stuff, they're never all that exciting to me when it comes to the paint apps. But this one, I think, looks pretty good. So definitely have to give them some props when it comes to, at least when it comes to the Pyroraptor here. I think it does look really nicely done and pretty impressive overall for Iron Studios. So I'm going to go ahead and actually pull the Pyroraptor back off of the base here, and then we'll readjust the camera, and then we'll bring it in here for a closer look. So if you start here at the head sculpt, first of all, when it comes to the head sculpt of the Pyroraptor, I feel like that is absolutely spot on. It looks exactly as I recall it looking in Jurassic World Dominion. I think they did a pretty good job overall when it comes to the fine detail. The scale detail and skin texture looks really good, really vibrant. You can see that even as you move up here into the top of the head. The paintwork of the face isn't super impressive, but it's decent for what it is. Basically, it's a dark grayish tone, and then they dry brushed a lighter gray over all of the scales, really highlighting the scales, and I think it looks decent. There's an area up here on the top of the head where they kind of missed the dry brushing, it's a little inconsistent, but it's not too terrible. The paintwork of the eyes is also really nice. You can see they do look really realistic, and actually when I first pulled it out, that gloss coat is so good, I almost thought it had glass eyes, that they actually look that realistic. So again, I do have to give them some major props as far as that goes. The eye area is very lifelike, but the mouth is sculpted in an open position. We do have all of the teeth sculpted pretty nicely. They do have a fairly genuine sharp look to them as well. Of course, this is a statue for adult collectors and not kids, so it's okay to have some nice sharp teeth, and they also have some nice paintwork to them with an off-white, and there is of course a gloss coat applied to the teeth as well, so they have a realistic shine. And we have the tongue sculpted out in there, painted with a purplish tone. The detail on the inside of the mouth, I know it's going to be hard to get in there. It's very dark inside the mouth, so it's really hard to actually get in there to see it, but it looks okay, but I really can't get in there too well in the current lighting unless I bring a flashlight in and shine it in there, but it looks alright what we have going on there as well. As we move back into the back of the head, you start to pick up the feathers, and I think the feathers look really nice, the fine detail. Look at how good that looks, even that big middle feather that sticks out in the crest of the Pyroraptor. The fine detail of that feather is extremely impressive. You can even see little areas where there's imperfections in the feather as well. They've basically painted this with a reddish tone. They have applied kind of a dark wash in a few areas, but they've also dry brushed certain areas of the feathers out with an orangish or a tannish, a light brown sort of tone, and I think that also looks pretty good. Maybe not absolutely picture perfect to the coloration of the Pyroraptor from the film, because it should be like some areas I think had the orangish sort of tone, but not like all over the place like this. But I think it still looks all right as far as the way that it has been painted. The red should also maybe be a little bit darker, but still looks pretty good. As you move down, again, the dry brushing that they've applied continues to help highlight the feather detail, and the feather detail does look really good as we move through. Sculpt wise, I would say this is definitely the best Jurassic World Dominion Pyroraptor that I have seen. You also have a dark gray for the lower side of the dinosaur, but as you move down, again, the feathers are still all over the place, and look at the way they just kind of hang off of the sculpt. It is so next level realistic. It's not often that you see feather detail on dinosaur models that looks this impressive and really kind of jumps off of this sculpt. So again, major props to Iron Studios for delivering one of the best feathered dinosaurs that I've seen like this. As we continue to move back, you can see the feathers kind of change their style and look a little bit moving into the body, but they still look super, super crisp. And again, that dry brushing continues to really bring out the detail. You still see some of those darker tones again as they have like a darker wash that's been applied. As we move down into the arms, we do have some nice musculature. You can really see that right there. But you can also see the plumage of the arms is fantastic. And the feather detail, again, man, so insanely impressive. You can see smaller but kind of erratic feathers as you move down. But then as you lead out into the plumage of the arms, again, of course, the feathers get larger and larger. We basically still have the reddish tone with some of that orangish or like brownish dry brushing. But then you also get some grayish tones, like a light gray as you move out. Seems like they basically dry brush that over a darker tone, but there's also some browns and stuff in here as well. It looks really nice, and again, a good bit of variation of color making it look quite realistic. Even kind of brightens up when it comes to the gray as you move further up there into the side of the dinosaur. But you can continue to see just how insanely impressive the fine detail of the feathers is. By far some of the best feather detail I've ever seen on a model. As you move into the hands, the fingers look really nice. You can see some scoots down the fingers with a nice dark grayish tone. You as well have the claws sculpted really nicely. They have a genuine sharp look to them. Even a little bit of dry brushing over the claws as well. And then you can see the palm of the hands right here looking really nice with, again, a dark grayish tone. And even the feathers on the undersides of the arms, again, painted pretty much the same way, sculpted super, super nicely. Again, you can see, like right there in the wrist, all of the feathers kind of hanging off of the wrist. Man, this thing is crazy impressive when it comes to its sculpt. As we lead back, again, you've got more really nice feathers moving along the back, up and above the hip region, and then moving down into the thigh. We have more of the grayish tone following along the outer edge of those reddish feathers, and then of course you could see a little cluster of smaller feathers there on the knee as we transition back to a skin texture. And again, they basically have like a dark gray with some light gray sort of dry brushing to help bring out some of the scales and stuff as you lead through the legs. As you move down, you do have again some scoots down the toes, really nicely sculpted toes, beautifully sculpted claws, again really nice fine detail even within the claws. You can see the sickle claw over there painted with a nice black, given a little bit of a dry brushing over them and a nice shine. We can see the dew claw as well on the back of the foot. And then we lead back up, and as we lead out into the tail, again, more erratic feathers. This is the only area where the detail kind of looks a little bit too thick, I would say, because some of the feathers, as you can see from the side, are really thick, like oddly thick. And that does take a little bit away from the tail, I would say, but it does have a beautiful, elegant curve to the tail as it leads out. And again, the reddish tones moving along the top with that dry brushing, and then of course variation of color leading out into this massive area of plumage out here on the tail with some of those browns and grays and stuff. And again, the actual sculpting of the fine detail of the feathers. Wow, like that's pretty much the best thing I can say is wow. It is crazy nice when it comes to the actual fine detail of the feathers. And then when we take a look here, actually from the more dominant side, because the head's facing toward us on this side, you can again see the paintwork and everything of the face, how nice that eye looks, again, how realistic and lifelike it is. As we lead back, you've got all of the really nice reds and orangish tones, and of course the very impressive feather detail leading down the arm is in pretty close to the same position as what we saw on the other side. The hand is in a slightly different position as it's kind of leading up a little bit more, but still looking really good. And then again, the feathers of the arm also look fantastic. As you lead back, you can see the leg is stretched back just a little bit more so than what we see on the opposing side. You can also see some more kind of clusters of feathers there on the inside of the side of the stomach as well as the chest. As you lead down through the chest, you see the feathers kind of disappear as you move into the stomach and the groin area of the Pyroraptor. And again, the detail even down here is super well done. And then we move down through the leg. You've got the really nice foot sculpt again with the nice scoots down the toes, nicely sculpted and painted claws, the dew claw. You can even see a little bit of reds moving along the back. Well, you can't if my camera doesn't focus. A little bit of red moving along the back of the foot right there, which is a really nice touch. And then again, we move up into the tail feathers as you lead out. But that is by far my favorite Iron Studios release that I now have in my collection. Then we've got the base. Now the base, I think, looks really cool in some areas, not so cool in others. So first of all, we do have the Jurassic World logo right here front and center. I kind of wish it was the Dominion logo rather than the Jurassic World logo, and I also wish it actually had color to it. I think that would have been cooler rather than just being kind of carved into like the side of the mountain. But it is what it is. It still looks pretty decent. As you move along, one thing I really like, although the actual like placement of it doesn't look super realistic, are these very cool icicles. I think these look awesome. You can see they do have a nice translucent look to them, and they kind of lead up into like some blues and whites and stuff up there. They do look pretty nice and definitely set a very cool visual for the model, but like you can see a super obvious seam where they were connected, so it like, you know, looks very artificial overall. It just doesn't look that natural, and you see it pretty much everywhere that we have those icicles, but they still look really cool, and again, I think are a fantastic addition to this model. And honestly, I would say one of the most striking aspects of this model as a whole, past the Pyroraptor, I would say this is probably the coolest part of this entire model overall. You do have kind of like a nice sort of stone foundation here on the underside, again with like cracks and stuff, and it's painted with a gray, given a nice dark wash, which does look really nice. And as you move up, you have kind of like rocky formations that have similar coloration to them, but there are like some brown areas, like some brown dry brushing and stuff that's been applied. But as we move up, this is the area where I'm not super sold on, is basically like the snowy areas. Now this area here looks okay. It doesn't look great. It definitely looks very artificial overall, but I do like the way that they've kind of airbrushed in some nice blues and stuff in with the white, and that kind of gives you the look of like the broken ice on the top of the lake, basically where they land in Dominion with the airplane. So of course I think that looks really cool, and I like the fact that it's all broken up and stuff. But when you move out here and you see these little like splotches of snow that move around, they look super terrible. Like they just do not look good at all. And I think there was something they could have done, I don't know what, but some other method that they could have taken, maybe by putting like artificial snow or something on there rather than painting it, could have made it look a lot more natural and realistic. You know, past that point, I think that's like my biggest gripe with the base, are basically these little areas of snow, because they just do not look very good as a whole. But you know, it's still a pretty darn nice base, and when you take a look at it from afar, it does look really cool, definitely stands out for sure, and is probably one of the nicer bases that I've seen from Iron Studios as well. And you can see again the underside, Iron Studios, Pyroraptor, and stuff like that. So really cool base overall to go with an excellent Pyroraptor. And then once you get the Pyroraptor back on the base, you can see again, it looks super nice once it's all put together. You have a peg on the underside of the foot here. You just slide into the base, and it stays on there really nicely. As far as a size goes, it is really quite nicely sized at 1/10 scale. Lengthwise, you are looking at about 11 3/4 inches, or around 30 centimeters, pretty much on the dot. And then for a height to the top of the head, about 6 inches, or a little over 15 centimeters. And then to the top of the tail, about 7, almost 7.5 inches, but not quite, or a hair under 19 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Dominion Pyroraptor from Iron Studios. And as you can see, it does have a pretty darn nice size to it. Definitely overall quite large and quite impressive, considering it is 1/10 scale. And I do have some other 1/10 scale raptors here, so let's bring a few of those in for comparison. Here is the 1/10 scale W Dragon Jurassic Park 3 female Velociraptor, which you can see is actually significantly larger than the Pyroraptor Pyroraptor, as well as the recently reviewed Prime 1 Studios 1/10 scale Jurassic Park Velociraptor. A review is up on the channel for this model as well, but you can see again the Velociraptor is a bit larger than the Pyroraptor. Then we've also got the Iron Studios 1/10 scale Jurassic Park Velociraptor, which you can see these two are pretty similar in size, maybe just a little bit bigger with the JP Raptor, but not by much. And the final comparison I have is with an Amber Collection Velociraptor, which you can see again is roughly the same size as the Pyroraptor. So if you do have one of the Amber Collection Raptors, you should have a pretty good idea for the size of this Iron Studios release. So Iron Studios has absolutely impressed me with this one. Again, more times than not, I'm usually a little let down when it comes to my Iron Studios purchases, but this time I feel like they've definitely exceeded my expectations, and this is by far some of their best work. The sculpt of the Pyroraptor is easily the most impressive sculpt I've seen from Iron Studios in hand. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous and may be one of, if not the best, sculpted feathered dinosaurs I have ever seen. The feather detail on this is seriously on another level of impressive and is, again, just incredible. The realism as you move through the model, there's just so much going on with the feathers, so much fine detail, little kind of like out of position feathers and stuff that it has going on. Just so insanely impressive. The paintwork as well is also some of the best from Iron Studios I've seen. Again, it's not absolutely picture perfect to the way the dinosaur looks on screen, but it does look really good here in hand, and overall is a pretty decent representation of the paintwork and coloration of the Pyroraptor from Dominion. I just feel like maybe there's a little bit too much of the orangish tones on it, but I still think, again, the orangish tones did a good job of really highlighting a lot of the feathers and stuff, and the actual skin texture areas is decent as far as the paintwork goes. That could have maybe used a little bit more, but overall nothing is really bad on the paintwork of the Pyroraptor, and the base is also pretty decent. Again, the icicles do look really cool. Some of the snow areas don't really look all that great, but as a whole, it's a very striking base to go with a very striking Pyroraptor. So if you are interested, again, the amount on Big Bad Toy Store is very, very low. So if you want it from there, I would say grab it as soon as possible, because, you know, stuff like the Dimetrodon and everything sold out and hasn't come back yet. So if you want this, I would recommend grabbing it as soon as possible and, you know, securing a Pyroraptor for your collection. So check the link that I will include in the description. Grab it if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.